Welcome to the Build on Beauty podcast, where beauty is born skin deep. Now, here's your host, author, speaker, entrepreneur, Cornell Jermaine.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a very special guest with us. He is a Grammy Award-winning executive producer, president and CEO of Music World Entertainment, lecturer and professor at Texas Southern University, and the author of the new book, The DNA of Achievers. Please help me welcome Mr. Mathew Knowles. Mr. Knowles, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great, Cornell. I'm here in Houston, and hey, it's a good day. I'm living my dreams.
Hey, that's great. Now, there's so much that we can talk about because your resume and your experience is extensive, and we'll try to cover as much as possible. But I want to jump right in. Many of us know you as a music executive or manager in the music business, but it's my understanding that you have an extensive background in the corporate world. Share with us your experience in the corporate sector.
Sure. Cornell, I had the opportunity to actually work 20 years in corporate America. And those last 2 years, I transitioned into the music industry. So, I worked 10 years at Xerox Corporation, which I give a lot of credit to the successes I've had, the training that they gave. And I was fortunate to be in an elite division of Xerox, in the medical division, and was the number one sales rep worldwide 3 out of 4 years. Then had the opportunity to be one of the first African Americans to sell CT and MRI scanners in America, and ended my career as a neurosurgical specialist with Johnson & Johnson.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you said you transitioned the last 2 years of your corporate career into the music business. How did that transition come about?
Well, I actually went back to school. I went back to Houston Community College here in Houston. I took music management courses. I took music production courses. I went to every seminar that was available, and I probably bored a lot of people because I asked question after question after question, and they began to build relationships. And that's how I transitioned. I didn't abruptly one day say I was going to be in the music industry. There was a transition for that.
Now, at that time, we know you're the father of Beyonce and Solange. At that time, was the girl group already formed? Had they already started to show interest in being music artists?
Yes, they had. They were in a group called Girls Time, and Girls Time then morphed into a number of other different names before and years before it became Destiny's Child. I got involved when the girls lost on Star Search, and they were crying their hearts out. I was down there in Disney World because, I carried the bags, the wardrobe, and I was there just simply a father, and saw the kids crying, and asked Mr. Ed McMahon, hey, what do I do? He says, most people that win on this show, we never hear about them. People that lose, they go back. Those that are committed, and they change their organization, they change the direction, they rededicate, and they really make a difference. And that's what we did. I then came back to Houston and went back to school and took courses, and finally became, co-manager of the Girls Time, and then we dissolved that rather quickly, and then my partner unfortunately died of lupus, and I took the hams and rams, and the rest is pretty much history as we know it.
Absolutely. Now you went and took your courses and went to class. Tell me, when you finished and you felt equipped to contribute to this group or anybody in the music industry, what was the first thing that you did when you began to work with the girls? What was like your main mission?
Well, interesting enough, I formed a corporation, and that corporation 24 years later is Music World Entertainment. And I looked at that moment when I formed the corporation, the name, the ethos, the belief, what I wanted to accomplish was what we know today as the 360. I had Music World Artist Management, I had Music World Talent Agency, and I had Music World Records. And that's what we are today and 24 years ago. Interesting enough, oddly enough, the first act that I signed to a major record deal was not Destiny's Child. And that's where people get a little confused and don't have accurate information that I left my job for my daughter. I left my job for a new career in the music industry. My first artist that I signed was an artist by the name, who still exists, Lil O. And that was the first artist that I signed to a major record label.
Now, early in your years in music, were there any challenges that you had to overcome? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Well, I think one of the challenges that all parents that in any way come into the industry, there's a stigma attached to a parent. And I challenged the industry. I challenged the marketplace with that. You either know your craft or you don't know your craft. And for every one parent that don't know their craft in the music industry, there's 20 non-parents that don't know their craft. So you have both people that parents and people that are non-parents. You either get this and are good at it and you really understand it or not. And so that was the stigma. I'm a parent. And so that was the one thing I had to overcome.
Take us to that moment where you knew Destiny's Child was going to be a legendary group. Can you paint that picture for us?
Well, you know, people had a belief that Destiny's Child could be a legendary group. There's so many things that factor into that actually happening or not. As you know, we had to make member changes. I mean, who knows what would have happened had we not done that. But that became necessary to do, and to do quick and fast. You know, we had to have great songs. The girls are extremely talented, extremely passionate. We had to have a great team of entertainment attorney with Ken Hertz and CAA being our agency in the beginning, and Columbia Records being a top record label, and building a relationship with Donnie Einer, the chairman, and him seeing my vision and me stepping up and taking the reins and giving a leadership to everyone of what our vision was. So all of those things were required. And understanding international, as I had done in corporate America, had worked with Philips internationally and understood multinational and international, and understanding branding, because when I came into the industry, that wasn't a word that was commonly used, branding. And I came in, wanting to brand the artist and the brand Destiny's Child. And that was different. People were in the music industry. I was in the entertainment and branding industry. The same thing Music World is today. And we have a new artist called Blush Music that we're excited about that we'll be launching here in the next 30, 60 days.
Tell us, what does it really mean to brand? Because that word is kind of like a buzzword in business right now. But for those who are new to business, what does it exactly mean to brand yourself or your business?
I like to keep things, I'm a professor at Texas Southern, so one of my methods of teaching is simplicity. Branding is just simply making a product or a name or a place a household name. How do we make it a household name?
And so is there an element of your personal story that's attached to that, or is that not so?
Well, elements of personal in terms that I was trained at Xerox, and Xerox actually understood branding. I remember very clearly in meetings that there was a concern that people used to call any copy a Xerox, and that was impeding on the brand of Xerox. And understanding that at a young, early age, what they meant about impeding on the brand and building the brand and having brand equity. And so those are just things I was trained at an early age. And having, the background corporate-wise, and also in the early 80s, my former wife and I, we started a business that became $1 million business for us in the 80s, Headliners Hair Salon, where we were the largest black hair salon in the Southwest, with a whole total new concept, and branded that and branded our concept. So that's just the experience. Again, having that corporate experience, having that entrepreneurial experience, having that educational experience, and then putting that with 4 young ladies that were incredibly talented and incredibly passionate.
Now, you mentioned with the girls finding the right team. I know of a lot of artists that are having issues. Usually they're self-published or not published, but managed artists. How do they go about
distributed or independent?
Yes.
Label?
Independent. How do they go about finding the right people? Because we understand that your team is really the asset to that artist. They're the ones who are going to make it or break it. How does the one go about approaching that?
Well, I mean, we could talk for hours about this. I give a all-day seminar that's called The Entertainment Industry, How Do I Get In? And we'll be in Rochester, New York here this week. But it requires that artist of getting out of their comfort zone and really understanding the business elements. And that's either by taking courses or going to seminars. You've got to have the knowledge of how to even get started in this business. To wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this without having a roadmap is pretty much doomed for failure. Let's be honest. The music industry has a 99% failure rate, meaning only 1% make a profit. Only 1% of the albums that come out. And that's a pretty challenging number, 99% failure rate. So you're up against tremendous odds and tremendous competition. And if you're not equipped, and first of all, let's start with the word passionate. And if you're not practicing your craft, a lot of artists get eliminated just because they're not good. Let's be honest, they're just not good. Or their image is all wrong. It doesn't match the music. Or their personality and attitudes are abrasive. Or they have a team that don't have a clue.
So I guess a better question, is it possible for a person to be independent and be successful in this business, or do you eventually have to go to the large labels and distribution companies in order to become a success?
No, I don't think you have to necessarily be at a major record label to be successful, and it's been proven time and time again that independent artists and independent record labels are making a significant impact. So no, I don't think you have to always go to a major. I mean, the reason why we go to a major is because of the muscle, the amount of money in the bigger team. But you can make an impact today, and I always say this, first make an impact in your neighborhood. If you can't make an impact as an artist in your neighborhood, why do you think you can immediately make an impact in the country? I mean, first start locally. And if people don't know you locally, then something's wrong. And if you are on YouTube and you only have 1,000 hits, something's wrong. And that's the beauty today is we have ways to measure success called social media, called YouTube. So there's a lot of tools available to us today. I mean, you can make a video today for $500. You can actually make them for free. And it still is about the quality of the song. The song is where it starts, having a great song. And I always say that. So you can be Destiny's Child, Beyonce, Solange all day long. But if you have a whack song, it equals whack.
Now, you mentioned the machine of the big labels. Just from your perspective and your experience, is it true that when an artist involves himself with a major label that they kind of lose their creative control? Because I know a lot of people feel that, when they attach themselves to that label, that they no longer can control the direction of their career. Is that true? Well,
it's no different than I own a small business. Let's give an example. Let's say something most people know, hair salon. You own a hair salon, and you go and you get an investor that gives you $1 million. Do you think you lose some of your control? The answer is yes. I just gave you $1 million. Yes, I am going to have input in your business. And again, I as a educator, I keep things very simple. Absolutely. Somebody invests $1 million, yes, they're going to have a say.
So that's not unreasonable for those who are interested in that. It's not unreasonable for a company to say, hey, we feel this is the best way for you to go, even though you're not fully embraced by the music. We feel this is the best direction, and I think a lot of people see that, that they think of different artists that maybe lean more towards the pop side of things when they really have this big soulful voice. They kind of get undermined with, but the person that has the money and they feel that this is the best avenue, that's the way that they just choose to go. And it's all about you navigating that space correctly so that when that time is up, you have created something that you can build on. That's how I feel is the best approach to it.
I think what we have to understand here, Cornell, is that this is not a music thing. This is a business issue. And that's any time invest their money, you lose 100% control. Seldom is someone going to invest significant amounts of money. And we're talking launch of an artist, sometimes upwardly $2-3 million. And nobody's going to do that in any business. If you had a mechanic's shop, a car dealership, hair salon, investor invests that significant amount of money will have an input. So we got to stop looking at it as a music thing. That's just business.
That's a great perspective. Now, you in your label, you have a couple of artists who I personally love, and one of them is Leandria Johnson, the other Brian Courtney Wilson. Tell me, what was your approach, and how did you even get involved with these two artists?
Well, we were fortunate to have built tremendous relationships over the years in the music and entertainment industry. And one of those relationships that we've always had and cultivated was BET. And so we were fortunate enough to do a joint venture, no different than American Idol, with BET Sunday Best, where the winners and all the contestants were signed to Music World Gospel. And so we did 4 seasons of Sunday Best, and we put out, I believe, maybe it was 5. I think it was 5 seasons, and we put out 8 BET either winners or first runner-ups over that period of time. And Leandria was our first one. Fortunately, every album we put out with Sunday Best debuted number 1. Fortunately, Leandria Johnson, I think it was 2012, was the number 1 female gospel artists in the country. Won a Grammy that year in Music World Gospel. We built that label to be the #1 independent gospel label and the #2 gospel label, beating out the giant Universal Music, only second to Sony. And so that's how we built that relationship, and being a partner with BET and the branding ability that we could use on the network.
Now, what about Mr. Brian Courtney? He has one of the big songs in gospel right now. It's all over the radio. How did you guys approach his career in working with him?
That was a totally different. Brian actually, when I started the Music World Gospel, it was called Spirit Rising at that time. And I got into actually building a gospel label because when we had the strategy for each one of the Destiny's Child members to do solo careers and then come back and do another Destiny's Child record and do another solo record, went to each one of the ladies and asked, hey, what's your passion? And Michelle's was gospel. And so that's how I formed a gospel label. And Spirit Rising, and I changed the name to Music World Gospel in the mid-2000s. And, that's how we got involved with Brian. Brian actually, a church that my family was one of the founders, St. John's here in Houston. Brian was the music director and the star in the choir, and that's how we signed Brian. I signed Brian, and also I signed Pastor Rudy, who just is so very charismatic and loves music and was kind of the face of the label in the beginning.
Okay. Now, to your book, The DNA of Achievers, 10 Traits of Highly Successful Professionals, you talk about many traits that are necessary in order to be successful, and I just want to throw a few of them out there. Let's start with passion. We've heard so many businessmen and women, entrepreneurs talk about passion. Got to have passion. What does it really mean to have passion?
It's the energy that we get from something or doing something. It's that energy, that excitement. That's what passion is. And I always say that of all of those 10 traits, if you don't have passion, you cannot be successful, in my opinion. I've met many successful people. They all are extremely passionate about what they do. It energizes them. They go to bed at night thinking about it. They wake up first thing in the morning thinking about it. It becomes the core and fiber of who they are. And they look at it differently. They look at, passion. When you live your passion, you never work a day in your life. I'm fortunate. Every day I get to live my passion. And what is my passion? My passion right now is to educate and to motivate in 2 areas, in music business and in entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about that. I could talk to you all day right now on this phone about that. We could actually maybe, do a Guinness Book of Records, how long we can be on the phone, me talking about my passion. That's what passion. You hear the excitement in my voice. I'm sitting up in my chair right now because when we get to that word, I get excited.
That's something you have to pay attention to, really, in order to find your purpose. That's what I've kind of discovered. When you can find the thing that excites you, it ultimately leads you to your purpose in life. Would you agree with that?
You said it very, very good. I'm actually going to use that because that's so true. Passion and purpose. It goes together. And, that's, can you imagine all of the millions of people that's going to hear this today that are so frustrated that they're doing something they don't even love doing? And when you do something, you absolutely love it because you love it. It is not because mama wants you to do it or daddy wants you to do it or husband, wife, boyfriend wants you to do it. It's because you want to do it. And often we're doing things that we're doing it for somebody else. Parents say, hey, you better not get into that music stuff. You better get a college degree, or you better not be a engineer. You better, doing things that we don't even want to do, but we're doing it, going through the motion of it, versus someone that's doing something that they love.
Now, you mentioned as it pertains to passion, doing something you love versus what another person would love for you to do. But to me, there's a caveat there because for many people, in respect to doing something they love, they know they love it and they have a desire to do it, but having that thing become their livelihood or turning it into something that will make them money has been an issue for many people. How do you advise someone to navigate that space? How can they take something they love and make it their livelihood?
Well, really good question. And if you listen closely to me earlier in the interview, I said that I made a transition from corporate America to the music industry, that I didn't just abruptly one day say, hey, I want to be in it. It requires a transition. It requires some planning. It requires some sacrifice. It requires knowing that I got to save some money, or I got to change my lifestyle for a period of time. And so you have to transition into arts and entertainment. It's because initially, I've been doing this a long time. I always say, as an artist, and pretty much anyone, it takes 6 years of passion before you start really recognizing it financially. It takes a minute for that. You don't just overnight become a success. It's a lot of failure involved with it and growth from that. It's a lot of risk-taking and growth from that. It's a lot of thinking outside of the box and being a visionary. All of those traits I talk about in my book, the DNA of achievers. So it takes a moment to get to the financial aspect of it. When I got into the music industry, I almost lost my house. That was a sacrifice. We had to move into an apartment. That was a sacrifice. And it's pretty standard sacrifice. Anyone that's had any success and lived their passion, there's a sacrifice associated with that. The key is, are you willing to make the sacrifice? Or do you want microwave instant gratification? Microwave, which is not going to happen in entertainment.
Now, you mentioned something very key, risk-taking. In Chapter 7 of your book, you talk all about risk-taking. What, just in a small nugget, what's a wise way to approach with risk-taking?
Well, one thing as a risk-taker is, first of all, it's me knowing that I'm taking on something that has a high potential and possibility of failure. I know that going in. And so because I know that, I'm going to be careful of what that risk is. And that's the first thing, knowing a true risk-taking and visionary. See, all of this goes hand in hand. If I'm a visionary, I'm going to take risks. I'm going to go against the grain. So these chapters all go together.
That's great. Now, one other trait I want to cover, and you said something very key that kind of struck me, and that was work ethic. You said work ethic starts as a belief system. Can you expound on that? What do you mean by that?
Well, again, the belief system is knowing that I'm passionate about something. And to me, that belief is this isn't work. I wake up every morning and I never say I'm going to work. I say I live my dream. I say, hey, I'm going to have fun, but I don't look at it as work. My belief is that I'm not looking at it from a work standpoint of a job. I'm looking at it from living my passion and enjoying and having fun with that.
Now, in respect to the 10 traits of the DNA of a achiever, what would, if you had to pick one, what would you say Beyonce's strongest trait is? If you had to pick one of the 10 that you list.
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say it's fashion. It's fashion. Beyonce, since a small, young child, and the same with Solange also, they have never wavered on what they love dearly, and that was to be a star. That, 3-4 years old, Daddy, I want to be a star. And they never wavered from that. And because they were passionate. And it's key and important that folks understand, and especially if there's parents listening, it was not their parents, me or Tina's passion. I always say if Beyonce or Solange came to me and said, Dad, I want to be a doctor, I would have then said, go to school. By the time you get out, I would have bought a hospital. You got to think about that. I would say I would have bought a hospital. But the same thing when Tina said she wanted to be a hairstylist, we started a hair salon. And that's just, again, a belief system of entrepreneurship that I learned from my parents.
So would you say a lot of the fuel that drove you into the music industry was because you were wanting to be knowledgeable for your daughters and have that the understanding of that space?
That was a part of it, yes, that day that they lost their Star Search. But I had always said a commitment that I would do 20 years in corporate America. And by year number 15, I was beginning to go deep inside of Mathew Knowles to understand what truly is my passion. What is it that I love? And I, we had the hair salon. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I loved the music, and I knew I loved teaching, and so that was part of it as well, is my passion.
Now you mentioned entrepreneurship, and I want to clarify that because there are a lot of definitions that people have put on what entrepreneurship really is. Give us your definition. What really classifies a person as an entrepreneur?
Well, I teach grad school this semester at Texas Southern, and one of the things that I teach this semester at Texas Southern is media entrepreneurship. And so we talk about that because sometimes people think that entrepreneurship means just owning a business. There's a lot of business owners are simply that. They're business owners. They're not entrepreneurs. There's a characteristic of an entrepreneur: risk taker, energy, excitement, leadership. It's just a number of characteristics that an entrepreneur has. And then there's this word that most people don't know called intrapreneur. And that's someone who works inside of an organization or a corporation, and they lead a department, or they're leading up an idea. And so entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship goes hand in hand. Some people can be an entrepreneur. My assistant, Lynn Almanza, who's been with me for 15 years, runs Music World as if it's her business. And so I also bring in a new word called intrapreneurship, intrapreneurship as well as entrepreneurship.
That's great. And now let me ask this, because this is a directly connected. Because in the streets we have a lot of people who claim to be entrepreneurs, but they don't necessarily have the income. And I've heard people say, well, if you're an entrepreneur and that's not making any money, you're really unemployed. Is that true? Can you really be an entrepreneur at heart and not really have the tangible income that comes with that?
A characteristic of entrepreneurship, one of those characteristics is being successful. And so everybody has a definition for them what success is. For one artist, success could be selling 1 million records. To another artist, success could be giving a concert with 100 people and they're really engaged with their art. with what they've created. So one thing that I do know is that an entrepreneur ultimately has a definition of success.
And that definition of success is what's going to determine whether you're successful or not ultimately.
Well, at least that should be, one of those traits is failure to plan is planning to fail. You got to have an end game plan of what you're trying to accomplish. What's the point if you never can measure success? You have to be able to measure success if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a passionate individual, you have to be able to measure what success is. And so we all have to have a measurement. For me, the measurement of success was Destiny's Child being the #1 female group of all time. For me, the measure was Trinity 5-7 being a #1 female gospel group of all time. For me, the measure was Leandra Johnson being a #1 female gospel artist. With me, Beyonce being the #1 female artist. All of those were my measurements of success. So I had a measurement that I had for myself for what I define as success. And notice, I never said money.
Yeah, that's true. I get that.
My measurement of success today is when I'm in that classroom and I see my students engage and I see their grades and I see their success after college. That's my measurement, when I look at it from an academic standpoint. And I still, I have, again, a new girl group. It's the first time it's ever been done. It's a rap trio with 2 rappers and 1 vocalist. Never been done before. Their name is Blush Music. And my measurement is doing something that's never been done before, taking a risk on thinking outside of the box, doing something different that sounds different, that looks different, that engages you differently in a market mainly dominated by men.
Now, you mentioned just now doing something different. Your entrepreneurial venture you had with Mathew Knowles, the salon headliners. What made that salon so different, and what was its approach to become the success it was?
Well, we always said that our #1 goal was to meet customer expectations all the time. Secondly, I did a large amount of research. The #1 thing that women dislike about going to a hair salon was time. Being the length of time that the service required. And he who could shorten that length of service could charge more. The third thing is we identified who was our customer. And we identified it was an educated female, primarily between the ages of 30 and 50, who made a medium income of $75,000 to $100,000. And because we knew that was our customer, back then we're talking 82, we had a fax machine. We were the first to have a computer. We had 2 lines of phones that folks could use to give them that service because they were professionals. We identified our market. We understood the customer needs, and they wanted to get in and out of that salon. That's what they wanted, foremost. And then they wanted, secondly, a quality service. And so Tina did an exceptional job with her staff and as technicians and as cosmopolitans. I mean, they did a great job of that.
I'm just curious because I still hear, particularly African American women, talking about this even today. What cuts did they make? Do you recall how they actually did that?
I was in the medical field. I simply took the playbook from the doctor. You go to a doctor's office, first time, they gather information. Then someone comes out and takes you back and they read give you a temperature reading, their heart, they read blood pressure, and they weigh you on the scales. And then the doctor comes to the door, they read the chart. They never met you before, but they pretty much know what they're going to recommend. They come in, they see you, They give you a recommendation called a prescription, and they fulfill the service by giving you the prescription. We use that same concept, is that we had assistants and that the hairstylist was the doctor. They never left their chair. And when that client left, they gave a recommendation. They completed the service. They gave a prescription. That was called hair products. And that's where we made a significant amount of revenue. And so, fortunately, gratefully, we made $100,000. I think it was year 1983 or 84, the second year of the salon, and had a staff with 25 people. It was always a big deal in Houston, Headliners Hair Salon. And Tina did an exceptional job in running that hair salon. I want people to understand. Country boy growing up in Alabama, dirt road, outside bathroom, being the first to go to this white elementary school, junior high, high school, one of the first, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Poor parents that were entrepreneurs, though, first and foremost, who were good people, who had a belief system of working hard and determination. They didn't get to live their passion. Their passion, actually, they did in a way because they wanted their kids to have the best. But we've had consistency in success in corporate America, success at headliners, success in the music industry, time and time and time again. And that's what inspired me to write The DNA of Achievers. That inspired me to look at other people that are highly successful and to see that there is a commonality between these folks that are highly successful in those 10 traits that distinguish those folks. And I just encourage people to go to Walmart or go online and get the book. I promise you it will be a read that hopefully impacts you in some way.
All righty. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. This has been the Build on Beauty podcast, where beauty is born skin deep. I'm your host, Cornell Jermaine. Until next time, let your soul be made whole. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Build on Beauty podcast. For more information about our host, please visit cornelljermaine.com.